Hey everyone, welcome to the Explainer. So today we're going to jump into something absolutely fundamental in JavaScript, variables. We'll look at what they are, why there are three different kinds, and most importantly, which ones you should actually be using to write much better, much safer code. But before we even write a single line of code, I want to ask you a question, and it's probably the most important one. Why are you really learning JavaScript? Because that goal, that's everything.
See, if the goal is just to learn to code, you might be missing the magic. The developers who really succeed, the ones who build amazing things, they don't just learn a language, they learn to build. They have a builder's mindset.
So how about this? Let's give us a mission. For this explainer, we're going to imagine we're building a simple e-commerce website from the ground up. Having a real project like this makes all these abstract concepts suddenly feel very real and very useful.
Okay, let's do this. First things first, every online store needs customers, right? And that means we need a way for them to sign up. And bam, that's our first big problem to solve.
So picture this. Our very first customer lands on our brand new site. They're excited, they're ready to create an account, maybe buy something. Okay, so the very first thing our system has to do is give them a unique account ID. I mean, we gotta have a way to tell them apart from everyone else who's gonna sign up down the line, right? This is critical.
And of course, we're going to need to store their login info, their email address and a password, the usual stuff, so they can come back later and sign in.
So this all leads to a really big fundamental question. Where does all this info, the ID, the email, the password, where does it actually go? Even for just a split second, the program has to hold on to it somewhere. And the answer is a variable. Seriously, the best way to think of it is like a labeled box or a container that sits in your computer's memory. You just give it a name, like user email, and then you pop the piece of data right inside. It's really that simple. Okay, so here's where it gets interesting. JavaScript gives us three different tools, three keywords to create these containers: const, let, and the much older var. Each one plays by its own set of rules, so let's run a few little experiments to see exactly how they behave. All right, first up to bat is const. So we create a variable called account ID and give it a value. Simple enough. But then, look, we immediately try to change it to something else. And what happens? Boom, error. The program literally stops us in our tracks. It's a hard nope. And that right there tells you everything you need to know about const. It is short for constant, and it means once you set a value, it is locked in. It cannot be changed. This is absolutely perfect for something like a user's account ID, right? You would never, ever want that to change by accident. Okay, so what about let and var? Well, check this out. We've made a variable for the user's email with let and one for their city with var. And this time, in both cases, we can totally update their values later on. No errors, no problems. The program is completely fine with the change. So this begs the question, right? If both let and var let you change the value, why on earth do modern developers pretty much only use let and tell you to stay away from var? What's the big deal? Let's find out. The entire secret is this concept called scope. Now, all scope means is, where is this variable available for me to use in my code? And trust me, this is super important for writing code that doesn't break, especially when you're working on bigger projects or with a team. See, with var, its scope is really, really wide, and that used to cause all sorts of nasty, hard-to-find bugs in the old days of JavaScript. Okay, let's really break it down. Let has something called block scope. That just means the variable only exists inside the closest set of curly braces, the things, where it was created. It's contained, it's predictable, it's safe. Var, on the other hand, has function scope. It basically ignores all those little blocks and is available everywhere inside an entire function. And that's where the trouble starts. You could have variables with the same name accidentally clobbering each other. It was a mess, a real nightmare to debug. This is exactly why let was introduced, to fix this huge problem. So now that we get all that, we can put together a really simple modern toolkit, basically just a set of rules of thumb to help you write cleaner, safer JavaScript every single time. Okay, here it is, the modern playbook. It's super simple. Rule number 1, always start by using const. Make it your default. Rule 2, only if you realize, hey, I actually need this value to change later, then and only then do you go back and switch it to let. And rule number 3, var,
Just don't. For any new code you write, just pretend it doesn't exist. It'll save you so many headaches. All right, just one last little piece of the puzzle. What happens if you declare a variable with let, but you don't actually give it a value right away? Well, JavaScript is pretty smart about this. It automatically gives it a special value undefined. It's really just the program's way of saying, yep, I see this container, I've created it for you, but there's nothing inside it yet. And there you go, we did it. We've tackled our first huge challenge for our e-commerce site. We now have a solid, reliable way to manage our users' data. That first foundational brick is officially in place. So the only question is, what's next?